8 hours of sleep, weight still there the moment I opened my eyes, not grogginess, not the normal fog of a man who stayed up too late. The specific weight that had been there every morning for months before the day had started, before I had done anything that could have caused it. I was at the peak of what anyone looking from outside would have called a successful career. The films were performing, the name meant something. By every measure I had been handed, I had arrived. And every morning I woke up already tired. I went to doctors, I tried cutting back, changing the schedule, taking the vacations. The weight did not shift because I was solving the wrong problem. I was not tired, I was unfulfilled. And those two things feel almost identical in the body until you know the difference. The difference is that one responds to rest and one does not respond to anything except the real thing. What I want to give you today is that distinction, not as a concept, as something you can check yourself against tonight. By the end of this, you will know which one you are carrying. You will understand why the solutions you have been reaching for keep failing to hold. And you will have one specific thing you can do that addresses the actual problem instead of the symptom. Put this on when the weight is there before the week has started. That is exactly when this applies. The second time through, you will catch the section that lands hardest for you. The first thing, you have been treating the wrong problem. Every solution most men reach for more sleep, a holiday, cutting back, a change of scenery, addresses the symptom. The symptom is real. The tiredness is real. But the source is not effort. It is the specific weight of effort that produces nothing internally in the man producing it. That is a different problem from overwork. An overworked man is depleted. He gave everything and needs to recover. Rest fixes him. Give him a week and he comes back whole. The man running the wrong direction is not depleted. He is something else entirely. He is carrying a full charge that never gets properly discharged. He is not running out of fuel. He is burning fuel for output that does not feed him back. And the exhaustion of that process is one that rest cannot address, because rest was never the issue. The direction was. Think about two men. The first works hard at something that genuinely requires him, not in a philosophical sense, but in the physical sense that this task needs what he specifically has. And when it goes well, he feels it go well in his body. He gets exhausted, sometimes deeply, but his exhaustion has a clean quality, like a muscle used correctly. He recovers and comes back. The second man works equally hard at something correct and successful and not quite his. He is also exhausted, but his exhaustion does not clear the same way. It accumulates, it sits in him. It is there in the morning before the day has asked anything of him yet. The first man has a fatigue problem when he is tired. The second man has a direction problem that presents as a fatigue problem. He keeps solving for fatigue because that is what the symptom says. The direction problem goes untouched for years. Does one of those sound more familiar than the other? There is also a third man. He is the one who senses that the problem might be the direction, the one who has begun to suspect that more rest is not the answer, but who is not ready to name it directly. Because naming it directly means examining the direction. And examining the direction means confronting the possibility that a significant portion of what he has built is pointed the wrong way. That is not a comfortable examination. So he stays in the symptom, he treats the fatigue, he reaches for the next solution, not because he is foolish, because the real problem is more expensive to look at. That is the most common version. That third man is most of us at some point. Here is the specific cost of treating the wrong problem. Every time a misdiagnosed man reaches for the solution and it fails to hold, he draws the only conclusion available to him, that something is wrong with him, not the diagnosis him. He is not recovering the way he should. He is not resilient enough. He is not handling pressure well. He adds those conclusions to the weight he is already carrying, and the next time he reaches for the solution and it fails again, the conclusions deepen. Years of this produces a man who is not only unfulfilled, but who has also built a case, assembled from evidence that the problem is himself. It is not him. It was never him. The diagnosis was wrong from the beginning. The second thing, there are two kinds of exhaustion, and most men have only ever been shown one of them. When I was making The Passion of the Christ, every studio had passed, my own money on the line, a project that could cost everything. I was exhausted in a way I had not been before. The production was brutal. The demands were beyond anything I had attempted. I was running short on sleep across months of work that required decisions I did not feel qualified to make, and I was more alive than I had been in years. That exhaustion felt like completion, like the body had been used for its actual purpose, like a machine running at its design specification for the first time. The tiredness was total, but underneath it was something that was the opposite of the weight I described at the beginning. It was the specific feeling of having done something that needed doing and being the right person to do it. Before that, I had spent stretches of my career being good at things. Genuinely good, Lethal Weapon, Braveheart, the machinery of a working actor and director who knew his craft. The results were real, but it did not use the whole engine. There was a specific combination of stubbornness and conviction and willingness to put everything on something uncertain that none of those productions required. It was available the whole time. It never got called on. And the accumulation of carrying something everywhere that never gets used produces a weight that has nothing to do with effort. You are not exhausted from doing too much. You are exhausted from doing too little of the right thing. Clean exhaustion feels like completion. What most men are carrying feels like a debt that keeps compounding regardless of how much they pay toward it. When did you last finish a day feeling spent in the right way? Not worn down from putting out fires, actually spent in the way of a man who gave what was specifically his to something that needed it? If you have to go back further than a month to answer that, the direction is the problem. I want to describe the difference in the body because it matters. Clean exhaustion sits low and deep. It is heavy in the right way, the heaviness of depletion, of having given. You sleep well inside it. The rest actually reaches you. You wake up knowing something real happened yesterday. The other kind sits differently. It is heavier on the surface, in the chest and the shoulders, in the place where the body holds the things it has not resolved. You sleep inside it and wake up to find it waiting. It was not fatigue. It was not something sleep could address. Sleep is recovery from effort. It is not recovery from the wrong direction. A battery does not only drain through use, it also drains from sitting charged too long without being used for its actual purpose. You can run a battery down through overwork. You can also run it down through never using it for the thing it was built for. Most men experiencing the weight I am describing have not been overworking. They have been underusing their actual capacity while fully occupying their time. Those are different problems, completely different solutions. The third thing, your body already knows. It has been trying to say this for a long time. There is a specific feeling that arrives on Sunday evenings before a week of the right-looking wrong thing. Not tiredness the weekend has not depleted you. A weight that descends ahead of Monday. A quiet heaviness attached to nothing dramatic. Just another 7 days of competent, unrewarding, internally empty work stretching out ahead of you before it has even begun. Most men have felt this for years and called it stress or burnout or the price of adult responsibility. It is none of those things. It is the body reporting accurately on the gap between what you are doing and what you are for. Your body does not produce that Sunday weight arbitrarily. It produces it as a precise response to a precise mismatch. The weight is not a malfunction, it is data. And data has a direction. Your body is not broken. It is reporting accurately. The report says, this is not it. Something specific to do with that. The next time the Sunday weight arrives, before you reach for whatever you normally reach for to get through it. Sit in it for 10 minutes, not as performance. As a diagnostic, let the specific quality of it register, because it is not only telling you something is wrong, it is pointing. It always points towards something. It points at the thing you have been calling impractical, or not yet, or someday. Notice where it lands. That is the direction. I spent years not doing this. The Sunday weight would arrive and I would move to cover it, activity, plans, anything that created the sensation of forward motion. The covering worked. I got through the Sunday evening, and Monday arrived and the week was what it was, and the following Sunday the weight came back, the same weight, the same pointing, covered again. The weight was not the problem. The covering was the problem. Every time I covered it, I wasted the information it contained. A compass you refuse to look at is still pointing. It is pointing whether you look at it or not. Looking at it is the only way to use it. Come back to this on the days that weight shows up early. You will hear something different the second time through. The fourth thing. This is the one most men recognize and almost none will say out loud. You have organized your real life as something that begins after a condition is met, when I have enough saved, when the children are older, when I get through this next stretch, when things settle. The present life, the one being lived today, is a waiting room. The actual life is the one that starts once the preconditions are satisfied. The waiting is the source of the wait, not the work. The waiting. A man I knew, his name was James, had spent a long stretch executing the plan correctly. By the time we spoke seriously, he had reached every condition he had set for himself. The financial number, the position, the point past which he had told himself the real work could begin. He called me, not in crisis, just flat. He said, I got to the when, and it does not feel like anything. The when had arrived. Every condition had been met, and the life that was supposed to begin on the other side had not materialized. Not because something had gone wrong, because he had never built it. He had spent himself so completely reaching the condition that the thing the condition was supposed to unlock had never been developed. He had been furnishing the waiting room for so long that he had stopped remembering it was a waiting room. He had built the preconditions for a life he had never started. The specific exhaustion of arriving at a destination that produces nothing when you reach it is one of the heaviest things a capable man can carry. What James eventually understood, and it took time, and it was uncomfortable to hold, was that the plan had been a way of postponing the specific risk of beginning, not a conscious strategy, a genuine belief that the conditions were necessary. But the conditions had been moving for as long as he could remember. Every time he got close to meeting one, another would shift into view. The conditions were not requirements. They were the mechanism of the postponement. As long as there was a condition not yet met, the beginning could wait. The postponement had been organized to look like prudence. It was fear. Not cowardice, a real and reasonable fear of the specific exposure that beginning something that matters creates. Because if you have not started, you cannot have failed. The waiting room protects you from the information that beginning would deliver. The information might be good, it might be difficult. Either way, the waiting room keeps you from finding out. You are not tired from living. You are tired from waiting to start. Here is the exercise. Take a piece of paper. At the top, write the exact sentence you use when someone asks why you have not begun the thing. The actual sentence, write the full version of it. When I have blank, when things are blank. Once I finish blank, write it down. Under it, write how long you have been saying that sentence. Under that, write one specific action, not the plan. One physical step that could be taken in the next 30 days, moving toward the thing without waiting for the condition to be met. That paper is the conversation you have been not having with yourself. Have it today. And listen to this again tomorrow. The second time through, you will hear the section that applies to you most specifically. The fifth thing. This is where I have to speak most directly. From my own experience, I was a born alcoholic. That is just a fact about how I was built, not a complaint, not a performance of humility. It is simply true. And the specific thing I understood only after stopping, not before, was that the drinking had never been the problem. The drinking was the solution, a highly effective solution to a specific discomfort, the discomfort of the silence that arrives when a man is not doing what he is for. That silence has a particular quality. It is not peaceful quiet. It is the restlessness of carrying something that has nowhere to go, of being configured for a specific direction and being pointed somewhere else. The drink removed that silence. Reliably, without drama, without addressing a single thing that produced it. And the danger of an effective solution to the wrong problem is that it works. It works well enough that you can run it for years. Some men run it for decades. The question the silence was asking never gets answered because the silence never gets long enough to hear it. When I stopped, the silence arrived. And what was in it was the question I had been covering. Not an abstract question, a specific one. What are you actually for? That question, once it is no longer being covered, produces a specific discomfort. Not because it is unanswerable, because the answer is already there. The question is not searching for something unknown. It is pointing at something you already know and have been not looking at directly. The discomfort is the discomfort of recognition, not of mystery. You know what you are for. The question is why you are not doing it. And the answer to that question, the real answer, past the practical reasons and the responsible reasons and the reasons that make complete sense, is usually some version of, because starting it is terrifying in a way that is harder to explain than to cover. The covering is rational. The specific fear underneath it is rational. What is not rational is the belief that covering it is free, that you can manage the signal indefinitely without cost. The cost is the weight. The weight is the fee for postponement. And the fee compounds. I want to say that directly to you. You already know what you reach for when the real signal arrives. The drink or the screen or the project that keeps you occupied enough to not feel what is underneath the occupation. You know it because you know the specific moment. You reach for it the moment when the quiet gets that quality, when the gap becomes briefly visible. And instead of looking at it, you cover it again. Stop covering it. Stop filling it. Stop moving fast enough to stay ahead of it. What is in that quiet is not a problem to solve. It is a direction to follow. The sixth thing, what the wrong direction is actually withholding from you. A man doing the wrong thing, even competently, even with real results, is running on half of what he has. The work does not need what he specifically has. His particular capacity, the combination of qualities that belongs to him and nobody else, never gets fully engaged. He carries it everywhere. It accumulates, unused. The specific weight of that, of being more than what today requires, day after day, indefinitely, is something most men never name because they have no language for it. After the passion, I understood something I had been circling for years. There was a version of me that showed up when the stakes were total, when everything was required and more than everything was required, and I had to find out whether anything else existed. That version was different from the one that showed up for work that was good but safe, more specific, operating from something deeper than skill or experience. Operating from conviction that had nowhere else to go. The years of skilled, successful, unremarkable to the inside work had that other version sitting in a room somewhere, fully charged, running down from disuse. The capacity was real, the direction was not using it. That gap is part of the weight. I want to be clear about what I am describing, because it is often misread as ingratitude or arrogance as a successful man complaining about success. It is neither. The work was real, the results mattered, the people involved were doing something genuine. What I am describing is not the quality of the work. It is the question of whether the work required what I specifically had to give. And for long stretches, the honest answer was no. That is not a comfortable answer to give about work that fed you and built your career and that other people gave their best to as well. But the discomfort of giving the honest answer is less expensive than the cost of not giving it. The cost of not giving it is the weight. It accumulates quietly over time, and it presents as tiredness and as stress and as the various symptoms of a man who simply needs to cut back. And the man keeps cutting back and resting and adjusting the load, and nothing clears because the load was never the issue. What are you built for that the current direction never asks for? Not the skill set, the specific thing. The thing that would show up if the stakes ever actually matched what you actually have. You know what it is. You have known for a while. Run this back on the days when the direction question is loudest. That is when what follows matters most. Think about the specific moments in your life when you were most alive. Not the most successful moments, the most alive. The moments when everything was required and something in you rose to meet it. Where were you? What were you doing? What did the work have in common? That is the data. That is what the right direction looks like in your specific case. It is not an abstraction. It is a pattern that you have already lived fragments of at intervals when circumstances happened to create the conditions for it. The current direction may never create those conditions. That is not a reason to stay in it indefinitely. The seventh thing, the last one, this is where everything else lands. The unfulfillment is not the problem. It is the compass. My father Hutton came back from Guadalcanal and spent the rest of his life in full occupation of what he was for. Not famous, not comfortable in the soft sense. A man who was entirely directed, who knew what he was building and why and what it cost and what it was worth. And the specific quality of a man who is pointed in the right direction, I felt it around him the whole time I was growing up without being able to name it until I had experienced some version of it myself. It is not energy. It is not enthusiasm. It is a settledness that comes from the body and the direction being in agreement. There is no gap to cover, nothing running underneath the ordinary moments that needs managing. When a man is pointed at the right thing, the ordinary moments have a different quality from when he is pointed at the wrong one. The right direction does not make every day excellent, it makes every day honest. And honest is a different kind of weight from the one most men are carrying. The gap is the weight. Close the gap. Marcus Aurelius wrote every night about the distance between who he claimed to be and who he actually was in the ordinary moments. He was doing something specific with that practice, refusing to let the gap widen without seeing it. He understood that the gap produces the weight, and the weight produces the reaching for things that cover the weight, and the covering postpones the closing, and the postponing is the life that does not get lived. He wrote every night to keep the gap visible, not comfortable. Visible and acknowledged and being worked on. He was the most powerful man in the world, and his specific fear was becoming someone who occupied the role without inhabiting it, who performed the duties without being genuinely present inside them, who looked from the outside like a man fully living and was from the inside a man going through the motions of a life that had stopped requiring his actual self. He wrote to prevent that, not because writing solved it, because writing forced honesty about whether it was happening. The specific honesty he was practicing is available to any man, not in writing necessarily, in any form that forces the gap visible. The question is, what I am doing right now actually requiring what I specifically have? Not is it hard, not is it successful. Is it requiring the specific version of me that has nowhere else to go? Is the work calling on what is actually mine? When the answer is yes, the weight is the clean kind. When the answer is no, The weight is the other kind. And the body reports the difference every single day, accurately in the language of how you feel before the day starts. The practice Marcus was running every night is one any man can run. End of the day. One question. Not about whether the day went well by external measures, about whether the day required what is actually yours. A one-sentence answer. Honest. No audience. Just the man and the gap and the decision about whether to close it or cover it. That practice, run consistently, keeps the gap visible. A gap that is visible is a gap that can be closed. A gap that is covered grows until the covering fails. Every man who ever built something real started from the feeling you are carrying. Not some of them, all of them. The specific restlessness, the weight that sleep does not clear, the Sunday signal, the sense of carrying something that has nowhere to go that is not a sign of damage. It is the sign of a man who has more to give than the current direction is asking for. The men who did something real did not wait for the feeling to stop. They followed it. Most people will hear this and feel something shift and then go back to exactly what they were doing. That is fine. It has always been true. The gravity of a built life is real and strong, and moving against it requires more than recognition. Recognition is the first step. It is not the whole thing. But some of you are past the point where going back is honest. The signal has been running too long. The weight has been there too many mornings. The when has kept moving, and you already know it will keep moving as long as the waiting continues. For those of you, you do not need more preparation. You do not need the condition to be met. You need one step, not the plan. One step in the direction the signal is pointing, taken in the next 24 hours. That step does not solve anything. It begins something. Beginning is different from solving. Beginning is the thing that the waiting has been preventing. You are not tired. You are unfulfilled. One of those problems responds to rest. The other one only responds to the real thing. Write down what the Sunday wait is pointing at, the specific thing, not the general version. Write it today. Then write one step, not the plan, one step that moves toward it without waiting for permission. The compass has been working the whole time. Follow it.